I, like many of you, was left really surprised when Mark Tibbs and Dillian Whyte split. Given the nature of the business, we understand that people do depart from one another over the years, but given the fact that they're on the cusp of a world title fight, that they've won several titles together and they're 11-0, it seemed unthinkable that that would happen at this stage, but they split, and Dillian Whyte announced his new trainer, Xavier Miller, who, without being disrespectful to him, I didn't know a lot about. I went and did a bit of research before the fight, and I found out that he runs a IQ boxing company, as well as Neasden Boxing Gym, in which he runs that out of. That he had already been working with Dillian. I had seen him do some pads with Dillian before the WAC fight in Saudi Arabia, but didn't know much about him until fight week, when I watched Pep Talk UK's interview with him, and also saw the footage of him training Dillian Whyte on Dillian Whyte's YouTube account. And the reason why I mention the training is because I think, like anything, it's attention to detail, and I was really surprised that footage came out on fight week of him on the pads. Whether they were working game plan or not, it looked like that was, now in hindsight, they were just going and doing what they wanted to do. But having watched the amount of hooks he was throwing, his balance, and how he was on the front foot constantly, and the way he was hooking to head and to body, I bring up the training because when you fight someone like Alexander Povetkin, you have to be aware of the man's strengths. He's one of the best left hookers, not only in the division, but in the world of boxing right now. For Dillian Whyte to risk it like that left me hugely surprised, to train like that with such a lack of regard for his opponent's strengths. Foul to prepare, prepare to foul, and that's what happened with Team Body Snatcher. When you fight someone as explosive and dangerous as Povetkin, you don't give them any unnecessary chances, and the risk versus reward ratio is just simply not there for you to go to the body, and as you can see, or to the head with hooks. As you can see here, Dillian Whyte, look at the body angle of Miller, look at the hand positioning of Whyte. He's not in a safe place to land that body shot in a real fight, because he's leaving himself open, and there's a seam in which the left hand can come through, like the uppercut in which Povetkin threw, to land. The problem is, when they are training, they look like, to me, are training as if they are going to just impose their will and their mentality and their style upon a fighter that is very cerebral. Now, many people will say to me, well, he put him down with a hook and he put him down with an uppercut, both times in the pocket. The difference is Povetkin was more clinical. It's down to small details, and Povetkin closed the show and Dillian didn't. He didn't need to be in that position. He was not in a safe place doing that. As you can see here, this is Povetkin against Manuel Char. Now, this is from several years ago. Inside the pocket, Povetkin is able to create space by turning off and creating the space for him to then dip over and slip to his left in order to shoot up that left uppercut against Char. Now, although it might not be exactly the same punch, the movement and the way he delivers it is, and it's always that slip over to his left. So much has been made of how Povetkin targeted the body during the fight, and yes, he did hit the body where he could, because Whyte doesn't defend his body particularly well, and Povetkin was just trying to score points. But Povetkin has normally done this in fights because against a taller opponent, albeit Whyte isn't exactly too tall compared to some of the opponents he's faced, Povetkin will look to make entry to the body. This opens up the opportunity for him to go to the head. Povetkin's biggest and best power shots come when he dips his knees and then comes up with the hook. When he makes entry to the body, he's then looking to go up to the head. He changes that punch. When he slips, he can do 4 things with the slip over to the left. He can either throw a left hook to the body, left hook to the head, a overhand right, or a left uppercut. And the latter is what Dillian Whyte was victim to. So, if you believe everything Sky tell you, then you would believe that this was just a fluke, that this was just bad luck, according to Johnny Nelson, and that Dillian Whyte's jab was brilliant, according to Matt Macklin, and Apparently his feet look lighter than ever before, according to Adam Smith, although if you go back and watch the Joshua fight, Whyte's giving more movement in the Joshua fight in terms of being up on his toes than he is in this fight. However, when you look at the fight and analyse, you can see that Povetkin was never out of this fight at any stage. Even after the knockdowns, he still looked like he had his wits about him, quite clearly. And he was having success, yes, to the body, because Whyte was leaving himself open there, but he also did have some success to the head. The rounds were nip and tuck, and as even Eddie Hearn had said, he had Povetkin edging some of those early rounds. So this is some of the technical issues that Dillian Whyte faces with his footwork. He's going across the line here in round 1. And as you can see, he's crossing his legs as he goes across to Povetkin's left-hand side. It's absolutely criminal. So this is again from round 1. As you can see, Whyte is leaning, as Ben Davison said. He cannot see anything coming because his head's over and the gloves are blocking his peripheral vision. And he leaves his rib cage and his chin exposed. This time, again in round 1, Whyte is fortunate. Povetkin slides over and slips over to his left, throws the overhand right. Dillian tries to slip, but actually leans over and the shot goes over his head. Dillian throughout the fight was front foot heavy, leaning over throughout. This is round 2, looks familiar. Now let's touch back on the footwork. Dillian Whyte is walking across the line, this time crossing his legs completely as he moves across to the left hook of Povetkin. I do have to laugh because he has Povetkin down 10 seconds after this, but this is just a fundamental flaw that should be ironed out. Also note that his heel is not lifted, so he's never in a position to push forward and push back. It's just very lazy footwork from Dillian Whyte. Now, what makes me think that they may have been aware of Dillian Whyte's issues with his stance and his upper body being square was the fact that you can hear the corner starting to shout side on jab at the start of round 5. So to me, it's looking like they're trying to get Dillian to be side on and trying to limit the target that Povetkin has. Now, if you can see here, Dillian Whyte looks to punch. He then falls out of balance, which he normally has had an issue with over his career, is his balance. When he misses, he has to constantly reset. He's not able to go through the phases. He then moves across the line towards the left hand of Povetkin. So he's walking towards that left hand. Of all punches and all sides you're going to walk to, he goes that way. Now, I mentioned earlier that Povetkin slips, and at times, if he doesn't work off the left hand, he throws an overhand right. Well, you'll see it here. He cocks the overhand right. He jabs the backhand of Whyte, slips to his left and looks to throw the overhand right. He shows him it, changes the levels here, and then bounces back out. And then like that, he's back in with the finish. And again, we're looking at the stance. So you see the jab takes away the concentration of Whyte because it gets Whyte to parry. So it's blinding him, it's taking his concentration away. Whyte, I believe, is now confused about what Povetkin's doing and is just basically covering and just hoping shots go over or he can take them on the arms and the body because he's not sure of what Povetkin's doing and maybe has had scant disregard for what he's doing because Povetkin's shown him so many different looks all off of this slip. Shots to the body, shots to the head. As people have said, yes, he was touching the body, but also he was giving him a slip overhand right. So when he did do that slip, it was constantly a different look. And as you can see here, as he does it, he jabs, he steps across diagonally so that his legs are inside the stance of Whyte. He's now in a great position. Whyte is leaning over at more like a 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock head position. His head then comes back up to 12 o'clock, in which Povetkin is able to slip in that left uppercut through the seam of the gloves. It's just beautiful boxing from Povetkin, and it's negligence from Whyte. Now, to many of you, you may have thought, you know what, this geezer's boring my tits off, but I'm just trying to get across the point here that Dillian Whyte has got many fundamental errors, and that this was not lucky. It was in part self-sabotage, taking the fight and then not even taking into regard the strengths that Alexander Povetkin possesses was criminal. As a boxer, he needs to go away and work on the fundamentals of the sport, and has to understand that it's more than just throwing punches. His footwork needs to be better, his ideas need to be better. Now, whether that's going to be with a new trainer or not, I don't know, but looking at Povetkin there, that was wizardry. It was skill at the highest level, and it was definitely not